So let's start with XML editing. I think there will be a lot of hands-on work in this particular part of the course. So if people have not got their hands dirty before coming here, you'll probably be in for a surprise because most of it is going to be hands-on. So to start with, like we have been discussing, there are multiple tools. Each tool has its own strengths and weaknesses that could be used for its own benefit. What we are going to do in this part of this section is use XML to do most of the work, at least as much as possible. But we'll also do some cheating and use the spreadsheet where necessary because it's an easier way to get people up and running in some cases. So depending on who wants to be the brave heart, they can go for complete XML editing, or we can use some of the spreadsheet methods as Lloyd described. But we'll go into the detail and see what we need to do. So to start off with, the template is being committed. It's not there yet. I think maybe it will come in any minute now, but to start this part of the course, the first thing is to kind of clone a project that you would be using throughout the profile authoring and hands-on exercises. So the project that we can start with is one of the ones that we picked, which has the latest templates. So the reason why we picked STC is because it has most of the latest templates working in it. So if you could clone this particular GitHub repo into your local machines, that would be a good starting point for all of you to work with. So do people know how to clone a GitHub repo? Okay. So I think that was pretty good. Details of templates. So the IG.ini is in the root folder, and we'll talk about the IG.ini. This is like the input to the IG publisher, and there are two lines that are most important. Is the first two lines, like Lloyd said, points to the implementation guide resource. In this case, I'm using an SDC example, so it is showing under input an SDC.XML. You might have IG.XML as the as the file, and then the template that it is using. Like Lloyd said, there might be different templates that we use going forward. So this is an important file that you need to know so that you can point it to the right place. The FHIR spec points to the latest spec in this case because it's a continuous integration build. For production purposes, you might use a different thing. Okay, the next IG.XML, that's like the implementation guide resource. We started getting into it. It contains a lot of the metadata about the implementation guide itself, like the name, the package ID, the URL, the specific FHIR version on which this is built. It will also identify all of the different profiles, code systems, value sets, operation definitions, search parameters, examples, extensions, and so on and so forth. All of that is contained in the IG.XML file. So what we'll do here is we'll open up the IG.XML file and review it to kind of give you an idea of what is contained within. So let me open that. Lloyd, in the version that you checked in, did you put in an IG.XML? I'm assuming you did. Okay. So I don't have that cloned on this particular machine, but I'll just walk through what I have here. Okay, so how do I make this come onto the screen? Function F8 maybe? Yeah, that's what I was hoping. Control F8. Can I duplicate it? Okay. Okay. Finally. So this is an implementation guide resource here. And you'll see the ID, which is like, this is like the ID that is going to be the most used thing, package ID for the implementation guide. There is a URL where we are going to find it, name, title, publisher, contact information. But the real important stuff comes down here, like the package ID, the specific FHIR version on which this implementation guide is based on. And then within definition, you'll see a whole bunch of things that are going to come up. So within definition, you'll see resource, and then you'll see things like capability statements. You'll see things like structure definitions, like that, and and then you're going to see examples. Assuming structure definitions. Value sets. So you'll see value sets. Well, you can go to the GitHub and just browse the other one, just for if you want to browse it. So you can look at that. You'll see code systems. You'll see operation definitions. So these are all different things that get included. So this is following the same resource structure that is already present in the FHIR spec. So this particular IG.XML or my IG.XML is an instantiation of that. So it will conform to that structure for people who may be interested in knowing that. So that's how this is defined. And then you'll see a whole bunch of pages. These are all the different pages that you'll see in your specification. So again, my IG.XML might have very limited stuff. So anytime you want to add overview of the project or use cases or something, or security or workflow, you would probably create one of these pages and then include that in the IG.XML. Okay? So that's a sample implementation guide resource. So anytime you want to add something to the system, to the IG, like a resource or a profile, you're going to put it in the right place and then come edit this file so that it can actually be published. So if it's not found, if you don't publish it, if you don't add it into the my IG.XML, it does not know that it needs to publish a particular profile or a particular operation definition or a value set and so on and so forth. Okay? So any questions on that so far?
So where do you get the file? Where do you get the SDC file from?
That's from the SDC project.
Oh.
So we just, you can go to GitHub HL7/SDC and browse it if you wanted to.
The one that you guys have, my IG.XML, does
Yeah.
have stuff in it. It's just not.
Not as
It's hard
big.
to get anything.
Lloyd wanted to make sure that you guys get your hands dirty. So it follows the resource structure order. So whatever the resource structure is. So you can compare it with this implementation guide link here. So if you look at the implementation guide link, if it comes up, you'll see that it does match, like implementation guide, URL, version, name, title, publisher. You'll see that there is a definition here, and then within definition you see resources.
The big thing to realize is the implementation guide is itself a FHIR resource.
Yeah.
So the structure file is a resource like patient, like any other, and so the structure has to follow the actual resource structure.
Yeah,
No, he was showing the implementation guide resource.
I was.
No, it's still a resource, yeah.
So you'll see that the resources, like we saw in the other example, then pages, and then so on and so forth.
Are you talking about the order they come out on, like the order the profiles would come out?
Yeah, so the order in the XML file follows this.
Alphabetical. I think it comes out alphabetical.
You're talking about the order in which this is specified here?
So how does this layout, corresponds to the layout? If you put the order in here.
Oh, the order. Okay, got it. You mean
You set the structure.
When it creates the HTML.
HTML, the order for it. So you're talking about these things, these files, maybe?
Well, even the other ones you rendered it.
So I think the question that's being asked is in the artifact list, where we're all standing in front of the camera. In the artifact list, where you see the list of all of your resources, how does the ordering in the implementation guide impact the ordering there? And the answer is, it depends. So if you enumerate all of your resources and you define all of the packages, then it will cause the packages to appear in the list in the order that you have them, and the artifacts within those packages in the order that you have them. So you have full control. However, if you're lazy and you don't want to list every single artifact in your implementation guide, then it will invent groupings for you. It'll say, well, we're going to throw all the extensions together, we're going to throw all the profiles together, we're going to throw all the code systems together, and within that, we're going to sort the names alphabetically. So if you want tight control over order, you can have that, but it's more work. And if you just want to let the IG publisher do it all by itself, it'll do it in a way that should be semi-reasonable and understandable.
I did not know that. So how do you make it come up in an order that you want it? Can you just explain that again? How do you?
So to have it come out in the order that you want, you list your groupings in the order that you want them in the artifact list. So if you want the extensions to appear before the vocabulary and then the profiles, you create a grouping for extensions, then a grouping for vocabulary, then a grouping for profiles. This is what groupings are for. Groupings give you the hierarchy, or well, it's not really hierarchy, it's only one level deep, but it gives you the categories, and then within those groupings, the order that you have the resources listed is going to be the order that you will get.
Oh, are the HTML pages typically hosted within the GitHub repository for the IG, or do you host them separately? I can't find any HTML. Is it just references
They are
to?
generated. They're not. You don't find HTML.
Oh, it's okay. Okay, I can't even find
Yeah, so it's a little bit weird. The pages have a .html extension on them because it's talking about the HTML that is to be, but the actual source that you will author is going to be either .xml because it's XHTML, or it will be .md because it's Markdown. Those will both get turned into .html in the publication. So it's a little bit weird that in your authoring, you're talking about something that's going to exist but doesn't yet.
Where are those files hosted?
In the page content folder, you'll see.
Page content is where you're going to find your XML or Markdown.
or Markdown.
And you don't see any Markdown yet. Give me another 5 minutes.
So you'll see this in page content folder here.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
I got a question. In your,
Wait.
sorry.
Go ahead.
In your SDC XML, there's some stuff in there that's commented out. Is that to be ignored, or?
Ignore it.
Okay, I didn't know if it had any special
No.
intention.
I mean, evolving IG publishers. So, yeah. It's, the grouping stuff is not required now. It's automatically generated. So,
Okay, so if
That's-
you were to uncomment that, it would do what they were talking about. It would create-
Right. If he uncommented and associated all the structure definitions to a grouping,
then
then it would be manually done. If he comments it out like that, it automatically creates it.
Okay, let's see if I can go back to the presentation here. Okay, so I think we talked about the IG.XML. I think now we can get into the authoring of profiles. So again, the XML versions of the profiles. Do we have a sample XML in the sample IG, Lloyd, or no? Nothing. Okay. So if you want to author a profile using XML, right, I will bring up something here and then show it to you. It's the easiest way. In the input folder, resources folder is where the profile would go in. And for example, here is a profile that is authored in XML. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, but can you make it bigger? View zoom.
Control plus is not doing it.
Just view zoom.
Just go to what is it? Are you in Oxygen?
Is it Notepad
No, it's
plus
Notepad.
view? Go to the view menu. Zoom. Up, up, way up. Down, down. There, yep, there.
Control Alt.
And again. A couple more times.
Num plus. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, my laptop is a non-standard keyboard.
Oops. Can people see it now?
One more. There we go.
Okay, now I figured it out. Well, something to learn, right? Okay, so you are going to use the structure definition resource and then define the profile. You know, the name of the profile, the URL value, the title. Then the next thing is the FHIR version on which this profile is based, the base resource on which this is going to be based. That's the other important thing. And then you have this differential segment within the XML. That's where you're going to specify all the different elements that you want to see in the profile. So in this case, this is the very first, the resource itself, which has to be present. Then the elements that you want to specify. So for example, you're specifying usage context.code, must support value equal to true, value codable concept. If you want to go down further, then you would do dot coding, and so you'll go on specifying this in this fashion, and that basically gets you the profile definition. Now, let me show you something else. So this is one way of doing it, basically the XML. So you have to basically either start from some XML and change it, or start typing it from scratch. The other way is what Lloyd showed you earlier, which is you could pretty much open the spreadsheet version. Do you have Office on this one, Dave?
Yeah, Excel's on that.
Just edit.
No, that's going to open it. Plus, that's going to open up, yeah. Might be easier to open up Excel first and then.
It's the only way to do it with Excel. You have to, Excel doesn't recognize XML as an extension. You have to actually open Excel and then open the file.
No, it's in the middle. In the middle on the right. In the middle. There we go.
Open this PC documents. Sorry. Is it .get? No. Oh, okay. Thank you. Learning Microsoft Office fast here. So this, so here is a much more manageable and easily understandable mechanism, I think. You know, for profile editing, I still prefer.
Zoom in, please.
I still prefer the
Zoom in.
Excel-based editing because you can see what's going on, like Lloyd said. You know, so what's that? Oh, zoom in. Okay, control. Oops. How about that? Can you guys see?
That works.
So you can see, you know, all the different elements that you want listed here, cardinality listed here, you know, invariants, also bindings, must support. It's much easier to kind of work with it in an Excel. What's that? How did I get here? In the resources folder, the ones which have a spreadsheet at the end, that's what I opened.
So there is one in the sample IG project. Is that one resources for how you XML, or is that something else?
No, it doesn't have. Doesn't have. Yeah. So I'm showing both versions for people so that you know you can choose whichever one which is most convenient for you. At least when you're beginning, you may or may not feel as comfortable with a big XML for the profile definition as compared to a spreadsheet. But then, you know, over time, you get comfortable and you start working with the XML directly. Okay, so that's where things go. So the next thing is an exercise, I think, for sure.
order of the elements, thank you. Make sure that the order of the elements of the differential are the same as the order of the elements in the class that is
In
constraining.
the resource.
Yeah, otherwise you're going to have some funny errors, and you may spend a
Yeah.
couple days like I did.
Absolutely,
So-
absolutely. So those are all the gotchas. So that's a very good example of what you'll run into if you didn't know it. And we have all spent days on it. Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah,
There's one more person.
Thank you. Yeah, so I have a question.
But same with inside there, you also have to do, I mean, because I'm sure and min and must support, they all have to be the right thing.
No, don't care what order those things are in.
No, but if you, the IG publisher.
No, the IG publisher doesn't care. It'll just load them. As long the order doesn't matter. Other than that, it matters. Yeah. The element order doesn't matter in the spreadsheets, but it does matter elsewhere.
I have a question about. Just sort of a general question about dependencies between implementation guides and resources in the implementation guide. So clearly, an implementation guide has some dependencies on it needs to on the resources. Are there any dependencies in the other direction? Does a resource need to be aware? Are there any other direction resources? Dependencies. I'm sorry. So okay, that's what I've just experienced. I took the questionnaire process response structure definition from the other project and just dropped it in the input folder, and it all worked. Is that what you would expect to happen? Yeah.
Unless it happens to be using something like a US core resource. So say it was a patient with a profile of US core, then you might run into problems.
There are dependencies within IGs. There is dependencies on the course spec. If you're only dependent on the course spec, then you drag and drop or copy and paste it, it should all work. So if you're dependent on another IG, then you have to, in the implementation guide resource, you have to have a depends on class, which depends on the specific version of the IG, and then from there.
Yeah, generally speaking, you don't want to copy an artifact from one project into another, because that essentially means that you're now creating two variations that are saying the same thing. So there is a mechanism to import other IG so that you can have the content defined somewhere else, and then say my IG is dependent on that one, and then you have access to everything in that IG. And that's more the proper way of doing it, so you don't end up with 15 different ways of saying the same thing, because we know from experience that maintaining that is hard.
You had a question?
Yeah, what's the advantage of doing the XML offering?
You don't need any specific. So the question is, what's the advantage?
I mean, it seems complicated, so I'm trying to figure out why would you do this? What's the advantage over this Excel spreadsheets?
Go ahead, Lloyd. Maybe you can answer it best.
Because sometimes the spreadsheets don't do everything that you need them to do. My experience is that the IG publisher generally keeps up with the methodology. The spreadsheets keep up with the methodology if and when somebody has the time and energy to make them do it. Trifolia and Forge and other tools keep up with the methodology that lots and lots of people seem to care about, and is therefore worth their time to bother supporting. So XML lets you do absolutely anything that you want to. The other thing is XML gives you very tight control over exactly what's happening. The other tools will finesse certain things and not necessarily give you the same degree of control.
If I open this up in like XML Spy, which has like prompting, would it suggest what the elements would be? Because I'm trying to figure out where I would put things. So that would happen. Okay.
Yeah, if you have this.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're going to use XML as your editing mechanism, please do use a tool like XML Spy or something else that is a schema validating editor, because it will keep you from making lots of silly mistakes. it'll
Yeah.
still let you make other silly mistakes, but it stops a decent number of them.
You
And-
definitely, go
and-
ahead.
Are you gonna send that little link around?
Which link?
The link for the schema location?
Well, this is an old location that doesn't exist anymore, actually.
Oh.
So, so what I was going to say,
Is there any location now?
I think, yeah, it the schemas. So you want to get the XSD file and put it in the schema. You know, honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the name of the base schema is FHIR-single XSD.
Okay, so. Can anybody tell us where it is? I don't remember.
If you run the publisher, it will be installed. If you're on Windows, it will install it into users, whatever your username is, .FHIR. That's where it will store the cache. The schemas themselves, Lloyd, they're actually downloaded into a subdirectory in the template?
Yeah, so once you have successfully run the publisher once, it puts right now, it puts a copy of the R5 schemas only in the input cache folder.
In this folder right here.
And soonish,
So here is
it will also put-
FHIR-single.xsd.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
And soonish it will also put the schemas for whatever versions of FHIR you're using in your artifacts in equivalent folders. So if you're doing an STU2 implementation guide, you will have a schemas R5 because you'll need that for your implementation guide, which will always be an R5 artifact, but you'll be able to point to R2 for your example instances and stuff like that.
So will there be like multiple folders here, like schemas-R2 and R3 and R4? Okay. So that's where it will go once we download and run it.
Okay, before we go further, it's 3 o'clock. Why don't we give everybody 15 minutes to get some coffee or tea or whatever you like to
Is there
drink,
coffee?
and beat on your computers a bit, because that's what we all love to do.
Okay.
So we'll come back at 3:15.